on, guys? Good evening. Welcome to Hang with Bears, episode 342. It is Tuesday, the ultimate Tuesday, 2/22/22. It is currently 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to go at least until 22/22 this evening, which for all you non-military is 10:22 p.m. We should easily get there. Norma, good evening. Kathy O'Grady in the house, infamously. Fine Art Bear, what's up? Lance, good evening. Psychic Pony Bear's in the house, good evening. And play a little bit of this while I wait for people to roll in and we'll get started. All right, guys. Good evening again. Welcome to Hang with Bears. Again, this is Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022, episode 342. We got Psychic Pony Bear, I'm going to try that again, in the house tonight. Looking forward to having her on, so we'll go ahead and add her. Looks like we got followers coming in, so I appreciate everybody that's been in here so far and coming in and spending your time with us this evening. Let's see, Psychic Pony. All right, we'll give her a minute. That was Ryan. Nice call. Nice catch. Hi there. Good evening.
What's up?
Hey, it's going. Welcome.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. For anybody who doesn't know, this is Psychic Pony Bear. I'll let you kind of introduce yourself. You have not been on here before, correct? Have you?
I haven't. I did the Christmas Bazaar.
That's right.
A couple minutes I did that. But no, other than that, haven't been on here yet.
Cool. Well, welcome. I'll let you take the floor and introduce yourself. And if you start feeling overwhelmed, you want me to take the mic back, let me know.
Okay. All right. I'll try not to start with where I was born and whatnot. But speaking of birthdays, it is my husband's birthday. So shout out to 2/22/2022.
Nice. Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday. Okay, so I guess it's pretty normal to start with how we got to the community, right?
Yeah. How'd you find Ellen and kind of stumble into where we are today?
I think it was probably like 2018. I think I found him on Crowder first time. Saw him with Crowder, and then Crowder took his little hiatus. And after that, I was like, well, what am I going to watch now?
Right.
Yeah, and then I just was like, well, Owen was on the show, so I just started watching Owen right after that, and then could not stand Crowder after that. So it was just kind of a natural transition. I've been here since then, so I guess a lot has happened in the community since that time. It's been kind of cool going through the different ages of the bear community.
Yeah, just seeing the growth that's happened just in the few years you've been around.
Yeah, there's been a lot. And all of it's fun, really fun to watch, really fun to be a part of. Definitely, tons of stuff happened in our life after getting in the community. I'd say like first big thing was getting out of debt. Listening to Vox and Owen and David the Good, the original 3 on Unauthorized.
Yeah.
And I just really was poking at me constantly, yeah, we really shouldn't be in debt. And then me and my husband got on the same page. And it was within, I would say, less than 6 months, we were able to get out of debt with just that concerted effort of just being on the same page. Yeah, let's do it. So we got out of debt just before we had our 3rd child, which was our first boy. So that was really cool.
Awesome. Yeah. Perfect timing.
Yeah, it was a big step in life, I would say, when you decide this is how we're gonna live. Just makes a huge difference because now, 3 years after doing that, because my boy just turned 3, we're in the military, and we're not putting up with what they're setting out for everyone, the path for everyone, do this or else,
Right.
So we're
the highway.
We're kind of on the fast track for getting the boot, which, it's not.
Well, that's the good news about the highway. It leads to Bertarius, so hitting the highway is not a bad thing in this case.
Yeah, I know. It's been a blessing to view it from a position of safety, knowing that you've got your ducks in a row and God has your back, and you can just move forward. We know we're going on to better things. And I don't know, with the military, it's definitely a form of slavery.
Oh yeah. 110%.
But you sign up for it. Definitely we needed the structure. Me and my husband, we got married almost 10 years ago, and then immediately he joined the military. And we just needed that structure. So I don't want to say the military is bad. I think it can do really good things for people. But I think we're definitely moving past that. We don't want to, stay in until we retire, nothing like that. It's just kind of feels like our time.
So are you both in?
No.
Okay.
Goodness, no.
I like that you say we. That you are a team unit, though. You are.
Yeah.
Whether whoever signed the contract, you're both on the line.
Yeah. Yeah, sort of. Certainly we go along the journey together. But I mean, with the military, there's been such a separation. It wasn't till 7 years in that I was able to actually tour a submarine and see where he worked, which was a great experience. I was finally I can see all these horrible conditions you get to work under.
Right. A little better understanding and appreciation.
Yeah. But it was good. I enjoyed going. Yep.
Yeah, I bet. So what branch is that? Navy or is it Coast Guard?
Yeah, we're in the Navy. Yeah.
Okay.
So he works on this, or he did work on a submarine. Now he's on shore duty, which is basically he gets to go in and they sometimes have no work at all. So he shows up at 6:30 and they're like, you can go home.
That's way more common in the military than people realize. At least for military troops and stuff that are stateside.
Yeah, it's probably kind of like a NASA job, It's just here, do this work task and go home,
exactly.
And
make
feel
us
you
look
did
good
a great thing for everyone.
Exactly. Feel important.
Yeah, but it's been good because we've never had this experience in the military before, him having time. It's always been him super long hours, and they have to do things like duty. When you're on a submarine, you have to stay on the boat. Some nights, even if you're not on deployment, you have to do overnight shifts. So
interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes it would be every 2 days or every 3 days or 4 days.
Now, are they in port at that time or are they out off the coast?
Yeah, they were in port. So their ship was actually doing an overhaul. But even though he wasn't out to sea, it was a ton of hours at work. And they don't pay you overtime in the military. So
No, not even a chance.
Yeah, no way. So this has been such a refreshing time because last year he was gone. He had the 2 months deployment, and then right after that he had to leave for 4 months school. They sent him back to Virginia, which is where we came from.
Okay.
Then they sent him back for 4 months, and I was pregnant during that whole time, and so it was kind of it was a long, long time without him. So definitely glad for reprieve right now.
Oh yeah, 110%. I'm sure.
Yeah.
So you guys are located where now?
We're in Georgia,
Okay,
right
so
right on the Florida line.
okay, so not too terribly far from where you guys are from. Still on the East Coast.
Where we're from? No,
You
we're
say
not
you're
from
from
Virginia. We were stationed in Virginia.
You were there originally. Okay.
Yeah, but we're from Oklahoma,
Oh,
so
okay.
we are a long way away.
So you are a little ways from home, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So full-time mom at home, is that what
Yeah.
what you're up to? Very cool.
Yep. Full-time mom, 4 kids.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And how old is your youngest? You said
She's 6
your
months.
third is 3.
Yep. So it goes 7.
Months.
So I have a girl, Alice, she's 7. And then Ivy, another girl, she's 5. And then Calvin, who is 3. And then the baby Eden, she's 6 months as of a couple days ago.
Beautiful. Congratulations.
Yep. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know 3's a handful, so 4. I guess you get to a point. I've heard that after 3, you've got the juggling down. That there's not
It's
a number
true.
after that. It's harder than 3. And I think once you have the 7-year-old helping, helps a lot as well.
That is the biggest point in having more kids, is that the more you have, the older the oldest one gets and can help you. And then it's like, well, if I have help, there's pretty much no end to what I can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's just learning to do chores, which is, even though she can't do them like super competently yet, like she's actually being helpful to me,
When it keeps her busy and out of trouble.
Yeah, and it's a big step. It's honestly a big step. But with 4, I think you kind of just start to figure everything out. Like you have your flow down, and so it's an easier transition.
HWB Bear said the original slavery. Hilarious.
Yep.
Awesome. So you guys were in Virginia before Georgia, and then how about before Virginia? Is that when you guys were in Oklahoma, or were you stationed somewhere before that?
We started the military journey in South Carolina, and we were there for quite a while because he's a nuclear engineer, so that's where he did his training. They have a big nuke training up in South Carolina. And he did that, and then he immediately rolled over into being an instructor, just because he did really well at school. So he was able to delay deployment, doing an instructor gig for a little while. So we were there for a while. Was it 4 years? Yeah, we were there for 4 years.
That was all in South Carolina.
Yep, and then we went to Virginia.
Nice.
Yeah.
So they've kind of had you doing smaller jumps, it sounds like, between stations. It's not like they've kind of had you on one side of the country and then back to the other and
we haven't
out of the country or anything like that.
Yeah. I'm thankful that we haven't had to do any big jumps. It's been nice kind of just being used to similar climates here on the East Coast. And in the Navy, you pretty much get a beach anywhere you go. So
yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's kind
different
of
from Oklahoma.
In the job description.
Yeah. Yeah, that's part of their selling point. When they're recruiting people, it's like, see the world,
right.
And, everyone falls for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you said 2018 you found Owen, kind of made your way into the community. One thing I like trying to find out is, was there a particular stream or something that he was touching on, some particular gravy that kind of really hooked you into what we see now, or is it kind of just you followed him from?
It was the moon landing. Yep.
Classic.
Because that was one of the things that my husband in high school just flat out told his teachers, like, no,
there's no chance. Right.
Yeah, and so I was kind of more conspiracy minded, we'll say, than my husband, but that was like the one thing that he was totally on board with. Like, yeah, we can definitely mock the moon landing. So that was kind of where I jumped in, and that was fun times.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, I think I want to say late 2018 is around the same time I came in.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, it was a big time. I think a big explosion of bears, and then after that, there's always the cullings that have happened and it gets back
Yeah,
down.
certainly. Well, I know for myself, and I think a lot of other bears, maybe around that same period, were kind of falling off the Trump train and off the Q train, and
Yeah.
kind of seeing how ridiculous that was, and kind of still looking for truth, still seeking truth, but not quite down those same kind of despair-oriented avenues that you kind of get sucked into in
Yeah. I
those
think it was
crowds.
the child trafficking and everything that was like really dragging me down. Like I was just in that rabbit hole, and it's like you get to a certain point and it's like you don't need to know anymore. You don't need to
Yeah, it's a real
constantly
downer.
subject
It's
yourself
yeah,
to that. So yeah, I just hit that point where I was like, okay, like it's sufficiently proven to me, and now I gotta move on. And that's where Owen really comes in a big way. It's like, how do you move on? Like if you're
yeah.
watching mainstream stuff,
What
then
now?
you're just constantly sucked back into something else that makes your heart hurt.
Yeah,
So yeah, Owen was a big part of just realizing you can leave that stuff behind and not be abandoning culture. You can
of
build
course.
something better.
Well, and adding that comedic element to that painful stuff that a lot of us have been learning really helped kind of break us out of it as well. At least for
Yeah,
myself.
yeah, that was
And
like with plot. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say taking it from being like just fearful and dark and kind of lightening it up and realizing like not laughing at the dark stuff, but kind of laughing your way out of that despair pit, if you will.
Yeah,
And solid for that. And the
yeah,
piano and all, and just watching him change his piano over to 432 was cool to experience, and seeing how that kind of changed the
yeah,
dynamic.
yeah. Playing for
And
the water. Yeah, I remember that phase.
playing for the water, yeah, exactly, with the
Yeah,
blue bottle, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And that was, that was kind of the same time that they decided to move to Idaho. There was the big push for the funding and everything. Like that was a really cool time.
Yeah,
The transition. It's funny watching the streams, and then it's almost like reminiscent of watching a TV show. And how you become really connected with the TV show, and you get nostalgic about it. You can do that with Owen's life as well.
right, yeah,
It may
definitely.
sound kind of weird, but people make those comments all the time. I miss the White Claw days, junk like that.
Yeah,
But it's like I like moving forward and not necessarily looking back. But
yeah. I
it's
personally miss the book burnings. I want to see more of those come back around.
yeah, yeah. I think that inspired a lot of people to do some book burnings.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
It took the stigma away from the name book burning and kind of made it fun again.
yeah,
Because
because they're
the
all
Germans were having fun doing that back in the day, but it was made to be really bad, and then people stopped thinking it was cool, and then we showed everybody how much fun it was all over again.
make book burnings great again.
Woodshop asked if I'm sitting crisscross applesauce on the floor. No, I'm not. I'm gonna. Lady viewers, I'm sorry.
Prove it.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not crisscross. I did have applesauce with my supper though, so thanks for noticing.
Nice.
So, any spells that were personally broken for you that kind of made you step back from Owen for a second and kind of not necessarily in a disagreement, but kind of like you really needed to digest what he was saying because it's something that you weren't really something that you hadn't seen a certain way before. If that makes sense.
Oh, I think it was definitely the firewood that he bought at Lowe's. That was the big moment for me where it was like, I don't know if I can follow Owen anymore. I was kidding. That was one of the funniest ones. I mean, you have to admit that was funny.
Well, but that was even a learning experience. Like, I didn't realize it took 2 years to cure wood for firewood. Like, and a lot of
Yeah,
people didn't realize that. People were like, "How could you be buying your firewood when you're claiming to like be crushing and
yeah, that
having
was
that
just a fun.
understanding?"
It was just so funny. Like you're not a real truther or a real homesteader if you don't chop your own firewood.
Right,
So
exactly.
basically meaning you would let your family freeze for 2 years.
Right,
In
exactly.
Idaho
What else are you
wilderness.
gonna do?
Yeah. So anyway, silly moment. But I would say the first big one was definitely flat Earth. And I got it right away. I was like, whoa. And I started looking at the sun and the moon. And I was like, oh, those are right there. They're just right next to us.
Right, yeah. You start
Um,
seeing it a lot differently.
yeah. But definitely I think the moon landing was a good place to start with that. Because there was nothing about the moon landing that I was like attached to, or even the globe model. I wasn't attached to any of it, which I think made it easier for me to see the sense of flat Earth. Yeah, because I didn't give any attention to this stuff when I was in school. I'm a terrible student. I'll just say that. Didn't care about any of it. I was lucky to have very lenient teachers in a small private school. You get away with more, kind of like in homeschool. You get to do more of what you like and not just be so worried about taking tests. So
Yeah, certainly.
I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of the struggle of public schools and just big schools in general is that pressure of if I don't pass the test, then I'm kind of demonized in my class and the potential of having to repeat the year and all that. And just like it kind of, I think, kind of locks your brain from really fully developing and growing and learning what you
Yeah.
could if you didn't have that pressure over you like that.
Yeah, I think it depends on the person, but because there are types of people that really thrive under pressure and they like test taking, but it's more of like it's like a people pleasing type of personality that thrives well in that environment, because they have a set thing that they can do to make a teacher or a parent happy, and then it's just like, great, I followed this formula, and I don't think they, later in their life, it really pays off, but there's a certain type of person I'm saying that thrives under that environment. I'm not one of those.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, people give me, something to do with a deadline, and I will most assuredly not meet the deadline on purpose.
Right.
Just because I'm like, well, deadlines are stupid.
I'll get it done in my time as I see fit. I get it.
Yeah, and that got me in a lot of trouble, obviously, but I don't know, like I was just able to see that it wasn't like a life-altering school. Grades were not a life-altering thing to me, and I guess some people have a problem with that, but it is what it is. I don't know why I'm like that, but I enjoy myself.
Yeah, well, I think making that clear to your kids, I think, is important too. That like if you get a bad grade, it just shows us where you need improvement and where we can refocus. It's not like oh, you failed, like because you failed a test and you are a failure. It's just kind of highlights something that you didn't quite understand the first time around, and we can kind of revisit that and maybe lay it out differently.
Failure is an interesting topic, especially when you're approaching it from the standpoint of a child.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that you.
Well, there's that whole side of acceptance that goes along with it, and feeling unaccepted when you are
like
that
if you
failure.
fail, then you yourself are a failure and not worthy of somebody or something. So yeah, it's definitely something like you have to think about to fight, because it's in the ether.
Yeah.
Just that sort of idea of if you fail, you are a failure, which is the opposite of what's true, because if you don't fail, you never succeed at anything. My husband and I were reading this book. Let's see. It's called, I think, How Children Fail. It's by, I think his name is John Holt. But he wrote How Children Learn, How Children Fail, and School Your Own. It's like they're not a series, but they go well together. So we were reading that, and it's basically this guy in a school setting in like the 60s, I think, just going through his experiences with school children and trying to find a better way than what they've set out in the public school system. So it was really good to kind of get into that setting and just break down how you can do it a little bit better from his own self-reflection as a teacher. So
yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
And I think more of that explanation and kind of sharing that understanding would help a lot more than people realize. I think kids have gotten so conditioned in the way the school systems work to kind of miss that point entirely.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the point of public school, or just basic schooling. Like I'm not an unschooling person. I think schooling is good. You know, it's just different ways to approach it. Yeah, but the failure thing is big because if you teach kids that failure is bad, always bad, then yeah, it just has lifelong consequences, and I don't think they're able to mature as well if you just teach them that failure is bad because they're not pushing to fail at things so that they can succeed. So they're blocked. They have a wall in front of success.
Yeah.
Or they chase the wrong type of success, I would say. Monetary gain, you know.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then getting to a point where they're more so chasing acceptance and calling that their success instead of the actual success itself.
Exactly.
We had a coach in high school. I know a lot of people probably heard this saying as well, but you never lose. You either win or you learn. You either come off the field and you won and you feel great, or you came off and you learned what you did wrong, how you can execute next time so that you don't lose. And I think that's huge. It's just kind of, I don't want to say drilling it into their heads, but really pushing that towards the kids and saying, hey, look, like, don't ever feel like you're losing. Don't feel like a failure. Like, we're all at different steps in this game of life, and you're always going to have something that makes you stumble, and it always going to keep you from stumbling in the future if you focus on what caused you to stumble and learning how to kind of adjust accordingly.
Yeah, and I would say that's a really good segue into my story from last year. And I don't know exactly where you want to start, but failure, like realizing and really like putting to the test this idea that when you fail, you yourself are not a failure. Like you've learned something in failure and you've grown if you have the right mindset about it. And also, Vox posted Vox Day, not Vox.
Yeah, no, I follow
you. He posted the quote by Sun Tzu, and I'm not going to get it exactly right, so please bear with me. But said basically, if you know yourself and your enemy, then you'll have a victory every time. If you know only yourself and not your enemy, then for every victory you sustain, you'll also sustain a loss. And then if you know neither yourself nor your enemy, you will succumb every time.
Yeah.
So that told me a lot about what happened last year when I got arrested. So I'll just go ahead and dive into this story.
I think half of the chat was not ready for that line.
Oh. Yeah, so we'll start with COVID-19, I guess. From the start, because I would say a lot because I was listening to Owen and Vox, that I was able to very calmly transition into the COVID-19 environment. It probably would have been a more panicky transition had I not been a part of this community. So I was able to laugh at a lot of the stuff, and just really take the situations that were coming. Obviously, I'm a mom. I go to grocery stores. I'm going out with my kids. That's a normal thing. And then all of a sudden, I start going to grocery stores and people are scoffing at me and angry at me because I'm bringing my kids out. And oh my goodness, why would you do that? There's a scary virus trying to kill everyone. You're the bad lady. So that situation happened a lot. And so I was, gleaning advice from all the bears, like just through like different chats and comments on Owen's videos about how to handle the situation, how to make it humorous, all that stuff. So I applied a lot of different strategies, and I've been kicked out of a lot of places. A lot. I'm sure everyone has these stories now. But so that was in Virginia. We were still in Virginia when it started. And then we got moved over here to Georgia. We were just a couple months into living in our new town. I had already been kicked out of a couple of places, the commissary on base being one of them. And I was just starting to get to a point where I was like, there's no amount of pressure, like social or otherwise, that the system could apply on me that would make me wear a mask. There wasn't any. And so I started like realizing, well, why is that? Like, because I know that some people do it to get along, like, they have to for their job or whatever, to provide for their family, or just even to go into a bank or whatever. It doesn't matter what it was. I was very blessed to not have had that situation come up with me where there was some place that I had to go where they were absolutely not going to allow me in. I didn't have any trips to the hospital or anything like that. So really blessed to not have had that battle before I was really ready for it. But yeah, I got kicked out of the commissary, and I would say that was like the tipping point for me, where I was like, I'm just tired of this. Tired of being kicked out of everywhere. And I knew I wasn't doing anything wrong. Like I was not breaking my conscience being in these places that have signs that, say wear a mask. So it was really just up to me to learn how to defend what I know is right. So there was a day where I was here and my husband was here at home with one of his friends and our kids. Just a normal day. Always starts out like that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and so I cooked dinner and everything, and my boy, he was like 18 months, about to be, he was 20 months. So he was growing out of his clothes, and I was like, I really, I can't put this off anymore. I gotta go to the thrift store, get my boy some new clothes. So I just did everything I needed to do at home, and I was like, I gotta go to the thrift store. I just have to do it now. So I went by myself, which is very unusual. I don't normally go out by myself, not very often anyway. And it was a new place, so I had never been here before. So, they've got the sign on the door, that says you gotta wear a mask, and that's, it's everywhere. So I don't know whether they just have it up to, appease people, or if it's like a serious sign. So I go in, I'm shopping for an hour, and nobody approaches me. There are no angry patrons, which is weird. There's nobody else that's like badgering me, and I'm just minding my own business, because that's what I learned to do. Just mind my own business like I normally do it. There's nothing wrong with me going into a store. And then I go to check out, and the lady at the counter, she couldn't have been more than 20 years old, but she was checking me out just fine. And then the manager comes up, and she's like, you gotta have a mask for us to check you out. I was like, well, she's already checking me out. I'm just gonna get my stuff. She's like, no, the owner of the store, he says that if there's anybody that comes through here without a mask, that I'll lose my job, and everyone under me will lose their job if I let anyone through without a mask.
Classic scare tactic.
Yeah, and I couldn't tell if that was like a real scenario where the owner was actually threatening her like that, or if it was just a way for her to enforce it without being confrontational herself, without taking a hard line herself.
Right.
So, it was a little hard to discern, because I just, after she said that, she repeated that if you want to be checked out, you gotta wear a mask. And I said, something like, with all due respect, there isn't a single person on the face of the earth that has the authority to tell me to cover my oxygen holes.
Right.
So, I wasn't being super like rude to her or anything, but I was just like putting my foot down, like, that's not going to happen. And she's like, well, I guess I'm going to have to call the cops. And I was like, okay, you can do that.
And you said you had your son with you?
No, I was by myself, which was just an unusual part of it, I guess. And I can get a little bit ornery. So she does call the cops, and I'm just like standing there waiting. She started, this is what she said. She says, it's the mask policy again. So I'm not the first person she's called the cops on.
Of course not.
Yeah, and then she starts like describing me. She's like the shirt color, and if she can't see my pants, she's trying to give them like my whole outfit, and so I just like stick my foot up on the counter.
I'm just trying to be helpful.
Yeah. So again, I'm not being rude. Like, she's laughing. Like, I'm making her laugh with the things that I'm doing. So, she's finished with the call. She doesn't make it a trespassing call. She just says, there's a customer here that's causing a disturbance at the end of the call. So that's all fine. I'm just like, okay, this is the day. I'm going to get into a conversation with some police officers over how they can enforce this, like telling somebody that they have to not breathe inside of a store. Like, so I don't know. I was just curious about how it was going to go down. Boy, did I find out. So let's see. So after she finishes, she hangs up and she's still talking to me. She's like, I don't believe this myself. I don't think that you should be forced to wear a mask in order to get service, yada, yada, all this stuff. Basically just trying to like ease the blame. It felt like she feels guilty that she's doing this, which I think she should, because if she really doesn't believe that people should be forced to, but she's enforcing it, then she's like going against her principles.
Right.
In order to keep a job at a thrift store. So yeah, I was just like, okay, like I wasn't like giving her an inch on that. And then I just asked her, is it okay if I just stand off to the side here while we wait for the police to arrive? So so she said yes. And I moved myself to the side just so that, other people in the store could easily just keep checking out. Like, I wasn't trying to cause a disturbance. I wasn't acting crazy, not chaining myself to the cash register, demanding that they check me out or anything. I was just curious, honestly, on how I could defend my right to be in a store without a mask on. So,
yep. You said you were expecting at the time, correct?
Yes, I was.
How far along were you?
I was probably 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, so you weren't like noticeably like, okay,
no,
this lady's super pregnant.
Nope. But it was a big deal because they ask you that when you go to jail. They ask you if there's any chance that you could be pregnant or if you're pregnant. So it's kind of a big deal for them and how they treat you. Honestly, they treat you differently once
Good
they
know.
Yep.
Well, not for myself, but for any ladies in the house.
Yeah, are you expecting anytime soon?
Yes.
Expecting to get arrested?
Either way. Valuable information.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really good to get the inside scoop on what it's like to go to the county jail. Honestly, just having that experience makes me more comfortable getting into a situation like that again. Not so that I can like get arrested on purpose or anything like that, but just like there's less they can threaten you with when there's less unknowns, I would say. So that's another unknown I can just check a box on. I now know what it's like to go to jail, and probably wouldn't kill me.
Right.
Yeah. So can I jump back in?
Yeah.
Okay. So then the cops show up it's like 10 minutes later. It's a small town. So, and there was actually a sheriff's station, 2 buildings over from this thrift store. So they got there pretty quickly. So it was a male and a female officer. They come in, and again, I'm being ornery, doing what's the Dumb and Dumber, like,
Yep.
doing the Dumb and Dumber when they come in the door. Yeah, I know. So retarded.
You weren't helping your case, but you were having a good time.
No. I mean, I was just being goofy. Like, that wasn't a huge deal. I don't even think they noticed that I was doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they get over there and they're like, what seems to be the problem? And some stupid line. And I'm just like, well, they won't check me out because I'm not wearing a mask. And then they just give me the regular vanilla line when they have the right to refuse service to anyone for any reason, which is provably false because they have laws against refusing service for very particular reasons. So I immediately point that out, that they've just made a false statement, which did not help me. Not a good.
I was gonna say they love when you tell them they're lying.
I didn't say they were lying. No.
Oh no, you don't have to say that word.
Yeah. But I did agitate them.
Of course.
Yeah, by basically saying, so they tell me they have the right to refuse service to anyone for any reason. And I said, what if they were telling me to leave because of my skin color? And they're like, are you dumb? Like, she's clearly not telling you to leave because of your skin color. They weren't understanding my point, that, instantly rebutted their claim that for any reason they can tell you to leave. And I'm like, no, there's laws that say they can't do that. And then, when you get into it, the trespassing laws, there's different laws for, like when you're on a business or somebody's just regular private property where they're not running a business. Of course, I'm not well versed in that at the time. But I have common sense, and so I was, able to use my common sense in the situation. But it didn't help me because I was making them upset. I was making them very upset, even just by calmly talking. They felt threatened. They felt their authority was threatened. They felt that I was just somebody up to no good.
Well, I think that comes from you not acting like you were feeling threatened.
Yeah.
Like you weren't backing
probably
down, so then they felt the need, like they needed to like back down, but of course they're not
going
to, so they're gonna ramp up.
It did. It escalated, but the funniest part to me, honestly, the funniest part is that we're inside the building and both of these cops are not wearing masks. And this is the very reason that I'm being told to leave. Because I'm supposedly endangering everyone in there.
Little did she know she was going to bring in 2 more unmasked people from the situation.
Like she's worried about me, but not them. It's okay if we're in there talking for 10 minutes because it's just it's so silly. It was a lot of silliness. But like in retrospect, in order to avoid being arrested in that situation, I could have just said, hey, let's talk about this outside. Once I realized that they were escalating, for obvious reasons, they were escalating because they don't like to have their authority challenged in any way, even if it's in a constructive way. This was in front of a lot of people, which could have had something to do with it. So, they have to maintain sort of this air.
Well, they're trying to make an example out of you instead of let you make the example out of the situation.
I wasn't even trying to make an example out of anyone. I just was trying to see if you can have a regular conversation Because this was a small town. It's not like some big town where people don't know the officers. Like clearly she knew the people at the police department because she said, it's the mask policy again.
Right, right.
So it's a small town. So I was naively expecting to be able to have a conversation on the premises, while they are instantly jumping to, here is somebody who's intentionally trespassing, which I most definitely was not. I had gotten permission from the manager to go stand in the corner and wait for the police officers, and she never revoked that permission. Like she never even talked to me again. She didn't come over when the police officers did. She didn't say, hey, I want you to leave. She didn't do any of that, which is like, it's required in the law. That's in the, not even technicalities, just like in the law, the manager or the store owner has to tell you to leave. They can't use somebody by proxy. So they can't just tell the officers that, yes, I want this person to leave, and then the officers come and give you that message. That's not legal. So that's one thing they did wrong. Well, there were many things, but that's one thing that happened, is they just went over one of them. While the male officer was explaining to me the trespassing law, supposedly explaining it to me, the female officer left to go talk to the manager, who was just like, she couldn't have been more than 15 feet away, and she wouldn't even come over and like say something. Even though like me and her, like we weren't like on bad terms or anything. It was just like pretty cut and dry to her, like, well, I gotta call the cops and you have to go. But yeah, so the female officer went over and asked, and then she came and gave me the message. Yeah, she said she wants you to leave. So are you gonna leave? That's what they just kept doing. Are you gonna leave? Are you gonna leave? They wouldn't listen to anything I was saying. Like I couldn't ask any more questions. They were just like, are you gonna leave? Like just bullet firing that question at me. And I never answered. Like I just kept asking more questions about the situation. And then they ended up, both of them, grabbing my arms and dragging me out of the store. After I was like clearly telling them, like, please don't touch me. Like stand in front of me. Don't do anything to me. And then they just ended up grabbing me, taking me outside. Oh, and this is after I've asked them, like, have I broken the law? And they're like, well, no, you haven't broken the law, but you're close. They kept saying things like that. So they took me out of the store. And so I asked them if I'm under arrest. And they're like, no, you're not under arrest. And then they're like, but we need to get your ID so we can trespass you. And I said, I'm not under arrest, so I don't have to give you anything. And so I'm about to leave because we're already outside and they've told me I'm not under arrest. I'm about to leave. And then immediately when I said, I don't have to give you anything, she said, now you're under arrest for ID refusal. But that wasn't what she cited. So she was she was working off of the energy of the male police officer. And he was like feeding her lines because you could tell she was uncomfortable with the situation. And he was giving her lines, like what to book me for, whether or not to arrest me. And then, so like I got all the body cam footage after the fact. And after they put me in the police car, they're chattering, in the back of the car, trying to write up my stuff. And she's obviously shaken, and she's like, why? What did I even arrest her for?
Great question.
Yeah, exactly. And then he starts giving her the answers. What is it? What was I booked for? I was booked for criminal trespassing, not just trespassing.
So what made it criminal trespassing? What's the difference?
What's the difference? Trespassing is basically like a warning. They just give you a warning, and they actually don't even need your ID to do that. They don't need that. They just tell you, move it along,
Right.
That's it. And then criminal trespassing comes with intent to stay on the property after you've been told to leave by the manager or the owner, or the property. Like if it's private property, just the property owner.
Right.
So that's criminal trespassing when you refuse to leave. So it requires intent to be trespassing, which I didn't feel any of that, and that's it's whatever. But so yeah, so she had no idea why she really arrested me. It was very, very quick. Instantly pounced on me after I said, I'm not under arrest, so I don't have to give you anything. And then, they pour my purse out onto the concrete, just all the contents of my purse. They just pour it out.
Of course.
And I'm just I don't consent to any of this. I said it at least, it had to have been 5 times. I was just I don't consent. I don't.
It was enough for the cameras to pick it up.
and she really said, your consent is not necessary. she really said that. I was like, well, good to know.
Right.
Yeah. So that, they're just trying to get me to answer questions, which they do. They try to get anything and everything out of you. And I wouldn't answer their questions because I haven't done anything wrong. I'm definitely sticking by that. It didn't break my conscience at one single point in that whole thing. I'm not saying I did it totally right. Obviously, next time I would say, can we talk about this outside, so that if I'm going to agitate them, at least I'm not, they can't get me for something stupid. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they take me to jail. Well, I didn't answer their questions, which they were getting pretty frustrated with. But then it got to the question, do you have any tattoos? And for some reason, I was this could really be something on my side, because how often is it that you're arresting someone on the streets who doesn't have any tattoos?
Right.
Sorry, people with tattoos. I'm just kidding.
I feel
but
attacked.
Yeah, anyway, so that was the one question I answered. They were like, do you have any tattoos? I was like, nope. I don't know. I was trying to give them a clue that maybe you should.
I'm not the person you're after, right?
Yep. So yeah, they do. She ended up taking me to jail. Obviously, he wasn't. They, as much as they can, I guess they have females take females. And she was the arresting officer, even though he was the one kind of feeding her these lines and trying to get her into this situation. But I am thankful. That's one thing I'm thankful for with women in police service, is that, if you do have an encounter with a female who you have to arrest or take to jail or whatever, that it can be with another female. I will say that's one good thing, but probably the only benefit of women working in police work, I guess. Sorry, am I going too fast? You can...
Not at all, but I'm sure there's people in the chat that are taking notes on all this fantastic information. So if anyone needs her to slow down, just raise a hand politely, and we'll repeat anything you need. Hey, we'll take a quick sip break.
Yeah.
Let everybody catch up.
Yeah, and if there's anything specific that people want to know about, obviously just say something, because I miss details when I tell the story. Because there's a lot, and I'm just getting barely on the surface of the story right now, because it gets crazy.
Well, let's keep it going then. Looks like everybody's still tuned in, ready to go.
Okay, cool. All right, so they take me to jail. Actually, I should tell you about she tried, she called my husband from my phone. So she basically left this pause where he had to wonder if I had died for a few seconds. She didn't tell him why. He was like, she told him, it's your wife. You need to come pick up her car. And then pause. Yeah, what a great place to pause.
Right.
You say, this is Officer so-and-so.
Can you explain why?
Yeah. And he's like, so what happened? Because I could hear him on the phone. Yeah, so that was not nice of her to do. But then she's like, well, she's been arrested. And he was like, for what? It's like, for trespass. She just basically told him for trespassing at the thrift store. And he was like, oh. Because I think he kind of knew, like, sooner or later that,
I've been expecting this call for months.
There could be some pushback with that. So, yeah. So that was, it was nice. I would say a funny ride home after he picked me up from jail, just because, I've had to do him the same service. So, yeah. So anyway, takes me to jail. I get there and am immediately confronted with the lieutenant who is on duty. So he's this really tall black dude who's apparently not in a very good mood. So not really in the mood for my shenanigans, that's for sure. So I talked to this guy, and he's asking me for all sorts of stuff, my social security number and all this stuff. And I'm like, why do I have to give all these things? Like, I haven't been legally arrested in the first place. So why do I have to give you all this information? And then he immediately comes over to me, gets up in my face, and threatens me like 3 different ways. Threatens to tie me up. So there's like this special seat that looks like an adult car seat that's meant for restraining adults who are uncooperative. And that's just right in the booking room. So it's right next to me. He threatens me with solitary confinement. All this stuff, like right away, right in my face. So I don't know if anyone knows the definition of assault, but that's it right there. That is all that's required for assault, is that you're up in someone's face threatening them. So it was at that point, I was like, okay, I cannot contend with angry black man.
Tool returner bear just said niggas with attitude. Hilarious.
Exactly. Yes. That's exactly what I got. And that was just instant when I walked in the door. So I knew my limits at that point. I was like, okay, I can't fight this guy. I know that he's doing this for show. He's got a nice factory line system going. What do you call that? An assembly line system going at the jail. That's what they do. Get people booked, get their money, and then send them on their way. And that's just the system, unfortunately. So I told him, I will not fight you. And I gave him everything he needed after that point, deciding I was still my honorary self.
Never let up one bit the whole time.
Yeah, but I did, allow him his authority over me at that point, because I'm a woman. I know my limits. I'm a very small woman at that. So I kind of knew how far I could push it. And at this point, I don't have a ton of legal knowledge in order to throw my authority in his face. Like, knowing that he was doing something wrong, I didn't have the finesse to put that back at him, which is okay. Everybody starts somewhere. But I was, definitely baby in my legal journey when it comes to these sorts of things. So, yeah, I did. I just let him do his thing.
I bet he would have loved the idea that you were letting him assert his authority at that. I am controlling the situation, whether you like it or not, sir.
Yeah. So there were definitely signs of, just like an alpha male, and because of, being in this community and, learning about the socio-sexual hierarchy and really applying that. It's nice to be able to apply that in situations. So I come across an alpha male. It's like, I'm a female and he is, task oriented, and he's top dog. So not going to deal with that situation, especially when, at that point, I'm not really sure if my husband is like upset. So I don't want to like make it worse where he has to worry. Like if they put me in solitary confinement, they probably wouldn't let me make my phone call to get out. So they did play tricks with my husband though. He got to the county jail and they tried to tell him that that my booking stuff wasn't going to be done for 2 days, that I would have to spend 2 days in jail. And they had already finished my booking stuff. So they were just withholding it from him. And he left the jail thinking that I was going to be there for 2 days. And then I was able to make my phone call. I called him and he said, they told me, you're not going to be able to get out of there for 2 days. And I was like, they just lied to you.
Yeah, I'm ready now.
So please drive back. Because obviously I don't want to stay there. I didn't want to be there in the first place. But it's definitely a good experience. Yeah. Even with like they strip search you, they make you take a cold shower in front of someone, like in front of, well, it could be multiple people, like, because you have to like shower with other ladies that are being booked. Just,
right.
Humiliating.
It's not exactly a line service. It's just kind of everybody in.
Yeah, but I'm one of those people that like I can totally handle that kind of situation under pressure. Like knowing, like deciding to go into it basically.
Yeah.
Because I knew like once I let this lady call the cops, like I knew that this was a definite possibility. Like I can definitely be arrested. Things can go south, and I'm okay with those consequences. So anyway, I only spent like 3 hours, but it really like it made me feel like, I think these conditions are better than what my husband's conditions are on a submarine. Like really.
And that's something.
The submarine like that I toured, it was his submarine, and like the rack, it's like 3 racks stacked on top of each other.
Oh yeah.
Everything's super cramped. The hallways are, this skinny, just one person, you have to like really suck yourself up against the walls to let another person go by. Yeah. They're tiny, they give you crap food, like all that. And I was like, this definitely isn't any worse than being on a submarine, so I can definitely, just, ride it out. I was fine, just having the right mindset. I was totally fine. Interesting cellmates and whatnot. Just these women who are just like, I need drugs. So yeah, and everybody there, like the people, like the woman who had to strip search me, the woman who had to watch me take a shower, my cellmates, also women, they're all just like, what are you doing here? Like, you don't look like us.
Aren't you late for church, white girl? Come on.
Exactly. Yeah. That was my nickname in college, was church girl.
Hilarious.
I guess I just have that look, which, that's okay. Of all the looks to have, church girl.
It's not a bad look to give off.
Yeah.
I also imagine you just up against a concrete wall, like sharpening your fingernails, just in defense, just ready for anything.
Yeah, I tried in the 3 hours that I was in a cell, I tried to get into the culture there because, with the different cells, you can hear and talk to other people even though you can't see them. So there's a lot of yelling. People that know each other that have been separated, and they're just like talking to each other, having conversations, yell conversations. So I don't know. It was kind of fun to.
Did you leave with a half a head of cornrows?
No, I didn't quite get there.
Your husband's like, I'm ready to pick you up. Like, no, my hair's not done yet. Like, I'll be out in an hour.
Was Barbie. So.
Hilarious.
That probably wouldn't have fared well if I had to stay there for any amount of time.
No, not at that point.
Yep. Yeah. So okay. So then when finally my paperwork is done and everything, after I'm able to change out of my little striped jumpsuit. Yes, those are real.
They're very real.
Yeah, the striped jumpsuit. So I'm able to get out of that. They take me out. And then I'm talking to the dude, the alpha dude, again, because he's the one who lets me go. So his name is JT. And he starts talking to me, and he's like, simmered down, totally willing to have a normal conversation with me. He's like, why? Why were you like just being so stubborn at the beginning? I was like, because I don't think I should be here. And just maintaining that. And I don't think I should have to do any of this, like give all of my fingerprints and every bit of information about my life into your stupid database. Like,
right.
Why would I want to do that? Why would I willingly do that? I had to do it under duress, and that's just that. That's
all
just
because you wanted to walk through the store the same way you have your entire life.
Exactly. To get clothing for my children, like, and food for my children. Yeah. Yeah. So he's like leveling with me, like talking with me. It's great. My husband's, out in the other room waiting for me to come out. I have to sign one last thing in order to get out, and I sign it with my signature, which I adopted during the COVID-19 dealio. I adopted the all rights reserved signature, which I had on my Georgia license. Like, I had gotten a new license when we came to the state, and I had signed it all rights reserved. And then I signed these papers, all rights reserved, and he is mad.
Like, oh wait, he didn't like that?
He's right back at it again. And I'm like,
of course,
dude, that's my signature. Like, what's wrong with this? And then he goes and questions my husband about it. He's like, is this your wife's signature? I was like, it's on my license. Like,
right. Like, what other proof do you need?
You have a photocopy of my license, along with all the other stuff that was in my purse. And he's just incredulous. And then he starts laughing. He's just like, this is like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And then me, of course, being more honoring, was like, oh yeah?
Which is ironic, because it's probably one of the smartest things he never thought of.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, I grew up with that, a social security number. Just to throw it in there, like, it's not as dumb as you think. Right. It gets way worse. Yeah, so I threw that at him, and then it's like, I think she's like a sovereign citizen or something. Like, so yeah, just silly whisperings about me. But he did eventually let me go after laughing at me and my husband, which is fine. Obviously, a little bit of shock for people when they realize, oh, people do have rights, and they're allowed to reserve them. And almost prefer to not waive your rights instantly.
Hey, hold on a second. The chat's saying we're getting a little bit of audio. I thought maybe it was my headphones. You're a little muffled.
Oh, right now or the whole time?
Yeah, it's all good. It sounded like you went down in the submarine.
Are we good?
You're still a little muffled. Someone said tin can audio.
What does that mean? Oh, tin can.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Should I get headphones? I can try.
Yeah, if you got some nearby.
Louder.
It sounds like it's coming back in.
Okay. Testing.
You're still down in the can.
Dang it. I wasn't prepared for this.
No, that's all right. We don't want any of this gravy to get spilled, so we're gonna. You got headphones. If you want to take a second, that's fine.
Okay. All right. I'll find it. 1 second.
It was good. Yeah, it was good before. I'm not sure what happened. Your audio setting change. Down in the basement can. Hilarious.
Okay. Let me see. I don't even know how to work these. These are my husband's. I never use headphones because...
Oh, now your audio is perfect.
Oh, well, great.
All right,
Just what I want to
we'll
hear.
keep him on the hip in case we need him.
Okay. Yeah, I don't ever use headphones because it freaks me out to not be able to hear my children. So.
Understandable.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Also, I can't. I have no ability to watch chat and like look at any questions.
Oh, it's all good. If I see any good ones, I'll
Okay.
try to politely pause you. It's mainly just wood shop and Stuntman Bear talking about whacking each other.
Oh yeah, typical.
Yeah, you're not missing much. Yeah, typical.
Cool. Okay. So, should I keep going?
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
Because there's a lot more that we haven't even gotten to. My fight with the judge.
Has anyone in the chat lost interest? It looks like our number's still high, so I think you're still hitting home runs.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll skip past the ride home with my husband, but suffice it to say, he was not angry. He was just, kind of like, he was glad he wasn't the only one. Yeah, so I go home after 3 hours. So they asked me at the jail whether or not they thought I could be pregnant. And I was like, yes, definitely. My husband and I have been trying for several months. So that was definitely on the books, which is good. That's a good thing to have on the books. But I'm going to skip to my arraignment because that was the next big step. So my husband's gone this whole time. He's on deployment after the fact. So he leaves less than a month after I got arrested. And then my arraignment, so that was in December. My arraignment is mid-February. So I'm in my first trimester. I get really bad nausea. So that was a hard time. Like, I'm taking care of 3 kids. I'm super nauseous. And on top of that, I have to figure out how to legally defend myself. Because on principle, I wasn't going to get a lawyer to try to get me out of, the trouble that was coming my way because I hadn't done anything wrong. I didn't do it legally. Legally, I hadn't done anything wrong. Obviously, things I could have done better in the situation, which I now know, which is great. I've been in the situation. I pushed myself to get into an uncomfortable situation, and now I know. I know how to do it better. So I think that's an essential part of the learning process is going into an uncomfortable situation where you don't have all the answers. I wasn't looking up like lines to say to these police officers. I was just running and gunning.
That's right.
And that's what I wanted. I wanted that authentic situation where, like, I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth. I don't know exactly how I'm going to react under pressure. But now I do. Now I know. And such a good experience because after this, after I've already been charged. So after my actual trial, the day I start probation. So this is spoiler alert. Yes, I was charged. I am on probation. But the day I started probation, I got into a conflict with my midwives over the mask stuff because they had reneged essentially on their original stance for me. And so it was my birthday, first of all. And I had an appointment with my midwives. And I had decided the day before, if they give me more trouble, then I'm instantly going to call the cops because I figured out after this first encounter at the thrift store that if you call, they have to be on your side. They can't just come at you aggressively. Yeah, they can't come at you aggressively because you called. You're the one who's in trouble. So I instantly called, like, first day of probation. Just because it was another, like, uncomfortable situation where I'm like, I have to get used to dealing with authority figures in a better way. So, just testing out new things. And yeah, so I would recommend it for people, like not to get yourself into like a sticky situation, but just to be familiar with cops and how they operate. It's just helpful, like, because I had never gotten a speeding ticket. I've never been in a wreck. I've never been arrested or had any confrontation with any police officer before in my adult life. So that was my first one, and yeah, I needed the experience. And so other people might need to hear my experience so that they can avoid certain mistakes. And just know that it's a good thing to become comfortable in that situation, whether I don't know, whether you're the good guy or the bad guy or whatever, because technically I was the bad guy. So anyway, arraignment. I had a feeling ahead of time that they were going to require masks in order to get to the court.
In the courthouse, of course.
Yep. So it differed all around the country and in each city and whatever, and I guess depending on which type of court. So this is municipal court. This is just like low level traffic court that I'm going in for 2 misdemeanors. So the majority of things that they handle are just traffic tickets. So on the one hand, it's like, well, maybe they'll be more lax because it's a small courthouse, in a small town, no less. But I just had a feeling that they were going to give me trouble because I had already come across the trouble in this new town. I'm like, well, I guess this is how they deal with this here in this town. And so I had to prepare myself legally for just getting into the courtroom because I don't know what it is, or why I was given the task. I really believe that God gave me the task to not capitulate on the masks at any point. So really it was just a matter of where is God, what situations is God going to bring me into that will test this, this task of mine that I've been handed. Because I know that everybody wasn't given that task to the same degree. Even in, our bear community, everybody's not given the task to the same degree. I'm one of those people that was just given the hard line and I took it seriously.
Woodshop says you could have diffused the whole situation if you just asked the cop why he was gay.
Gosh, man, why didn't I have you on speed dial?
Especially that Alpha B. As soon as you walked in, if you just hit him with that question, he probably would have just showed you the door. Yeah, they love
Hilarious. That one. Yeah, that would have helped a lot. Thanks. Good advice for anyone else who's about to
hindsight. That's right.
So I prepare myself legally, just reading like the state constitution, which clearly lines out that in several different ways how they can't bar you from a courtroom. A courtroom, by definition, is open. It's open courtroom. That's what it's
public.
called.
It's paid for by the people.
Exactly. So there were so many different ways that they could not block me from getting in there. And I mean, in the first case, they're the ones telling me I have to show up, Right. So it's like they want me there, but then they're trying to block me from coming in the door. So I prepare for this. God blessed me with a day of reprieve from my nausea on this specific day. And I was just so thankful because I needed to be calm and collected. I didn't need to be throwing up. That wasn't going to help me, I don't think. I wasn't trying to get anyone's like pity, So, I have a nice day. And I got this all on video because I had a friend. So I came here and immediately made friends with a wonderful lady. And she agreed to kind of put herself on the line for me and come and video the court experience for me.
Which typically cameras in the courtroom are frowned upon, right?
Yes, but I mean outside, before I get in. because I
Interesting.
knew there was
Okay.
going to be foul play. And yeah, so I knew it, and I was correct. 100% knew it. It happened exactly how I thought it would. So I had her with me. She came and videotaped. This is like 9 a.m. And I brought another male because my husband was gone. I brought a male from my church. He's a big guy, a former fireman. I just wanted a male presence just in case they decided to do something really dumb. So he was there, and he was more of a bystander. Like, he didn't share my convictions at all. But because we went to church together, he was totally, and because I'm a female without my husband there, he was totally willing to protect me, even though he didn't agree with my stance. He really thought all my constitutional stuff, was just garbage, and like, you should just do what they say. Why would you put yourself in this position? All that stuff.
So that we're not forced to do what they say. That's the whole reason.
Yeah. But like, I understand that people, it's sometimes it's not worth explaining. It's better to just do and not explain yourself.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of that. There were a lot of people who were like, why are you doing this? Or, like, they're not going to do anything crazy. When you get to the courthouse, they probably don't even require masks, So I was getting a lot of people who were like very doubtful that this was going to be an issue. And I was like, it's going to be. So I was glad that I had prepared, and that God really kind of warned me ahead of time that this was going to be an issue. So I get there, walk in the door. They've got the big robot thing that takes your temperature, the face scan, all that. And then they're like, well, you got to do the hand sanitizer pump. And I was like, not going to take your hand sanitizer. And they're like, why? And then they, were like, okay, well, will you at least just wash your hands in the bathroom? I was like, all right, I don't have any convictions against washing my hands in the bathroom. I can do that. Because I really don't like hand sanitizer, first of all. Second of all, I have like hand eczema, and it gets really bad in the winter.
Oh, it'll dry them out quick.
It would do worse than that. My hand eczema, like, if you put alcohol on it, like, it's a fire on your hands. Yeah, so anyway, then they block me from going to the bathroom. They're like, you got to have a mask on to come in the bathroom. I was like, it's a public restroom. But no, they wouldn't let me in, blocked me from going to the bathroom. And I was like, I don't know what you guys want from me, but I'm just here. I'm here for court, trying to get in. And the bailiff, she was a woman, and she proceeds to have a meltdown because I'm insisting to her that I have rights. I'm allowed into the open courtroom without a mask on. And I'm reserving my rights, and she has a meltdown. She just starts waving her baton everywhere, like, just going crazy. I have it all on video. And it was just such an interesting experience. Of course, I was nervous a little bit, because I'm not used to this situation. I'd never been to court before. Didn't know exactly how everyone was going to respond, but the bailiff did not disappoint. She just kept telling me, as per the judge's orders, you have to wear a mask to come in this court. And I was like, has the judge made a law that this isn't an open courtroom? And they don't, I would say the majority of them don't actually understand law or even know what the law's intent is. So it makes it really challenging when you're talking to them and you're trying to be really just calm and explain something to them, but they view it as, you're challenging my authority. You're the bad man,
Right.
So it's just this back and forth between me and her. I need to go to my court date. This is like, I've been summoned. So I need to get in there. I have the right to be in there, without a mask on. And then, word gets to the judge, the marshal, who did not like me at all. he gets word to the judge about what's going on. So the judge basically, he just keeps telling them, keep threatening her, basically threaten her with failure to appear. So they do. They take me outside. They're like, would you mind talking about this outside? I'm like, okay, that's fine. I was a little bit stubborn about that, but then eventually I was just like, okay, I will talk about it outside. So we did, and we went, they handed me rules of court, and the rules of court specifically stated that masks were not required, but they were encouraged.
Encouraged, right?
Encouraged.
Yeah.
So I just pointed out, like they hand that to me, I read it, I underline some portions, and I'm like, here's what it says. How this has the judge's signature on it. What are these contradictions going on here? Like, I have no idea what's going on with you guys. The guy, the officer, he just is like, well, I'm gonna have to arrest you for failure to appear if you don't put a mask on to make it to your appointment or to your arraignment. Which is really, you just go in and you plead guilty, not guilty, no contest. That's all I had to do, and they just would not let me in that courtroom. So finally, because all, just this back and forth, the judge stopped, he puts an end to it, and he gives me, what do you call it? Where you meet in the middle. He met me in the middle.
A compromise.
A compromise, there we go. He met me in the middle and he said, okay, you can come back at 11. So this is the policeman telling me. The judge said that you can come back at 11 when there's nobody else in the courtroom.
Special treatment.
So you don't endanger anyone else with your face. So I was like, okay, I accept that compromise. So I go back home, and it's only like an hour before I have to go back to court, but I didn't want to wait there. So I go back home, and they send a sheriff to watch my house.
Wow.
This was not a friendly police escort. This was somebody watching my house to intimidate me into compliance. And when I walked out the door and I saw him as I'm leaving for court, I just waved. I said, hi.
Right.
And I drove to court. I thought that maybe he was going to try to traffic stop me to make me late so that they could still arrest me for failure to appear. So I dodged and I took a different route to the court.
Hilarious.
Because I was like, I don't know what kind of tricks these people are going to pull. Like, they are being ridiculous.
Right.
So I get to the court. They let me in. They let my friend in with no mask, which was really surprising. They let her in, and they let my male friend from church in. He wore a mask because he's got no problem with that.
Someone said COVID takes a lunch break at 11. That's hilarious.
Yeah, the ridiculousness never ended in this situation. So the judge, so I get there, and before I get to start, the judge begins lecturing me and literally slandered me on the court record, saying that I was endangering everyone around, everyone in the courtroom, and I was, I was an upstart, basically.
Maskless and dangerous.
Yeah. So that was just ridiculous. But I was glad I got my two friends in to be witnesses. No video or anything in there, but I got the video afterward that the court takes. But one thing that I didn't realize is that the video that the court takes only gets audio from the judge, because the judge is the one with the microphone in this rinky-dink small town court. And I didn't realize this with this video because all I had to do was plead not guilty. So I didn't realize that my voice was not going to show up on audio, it was fine for that instance. But when I got to my actual court date, I did not have a stenographer. I didn't realize that I should get a stenographer even if they do video, because, we should all know by now, they do sneaky things. And one of those sneaky things is that they don't record anything that you say in court. And if you don't know that ahead of time, that means trouble, because that means you can't appeal, because you essentially have nothing on the record after the end of your case. So that was a big mistake on my part. So anybody out there
Another
who's going
learning
into any kind of
experience.
legal battle, you've got to have your own way to record things, whether it be a stenographer or whatever you're going to do that, because that was the one big missing piece, I would say, in my whole case. Okay. Anything? Am I going too fast, too slow?
Chat looks like it's still good. If you know anything about living man, woman, as opposed to a person. Yeah.
Yep. And I used a lot of that. I did that whole affidavit process, noticing them ahead of time, which saved my butt when it came to court time, because they tried to do the same thing, keep me from going to my court appearance. They were more prepared. They had a very calm and collected bailiff the next time I went. Somebody who was coached to not look at me or speak to me at all. So what I had to do ahead of time before my actual court date was notice the crap out of them. I had to notice them. I noticed the sheriff's department, the local police department, the judge, everyone. The mayor, because in this municipal court, the courthouse is inside of the city hall or whatever. So they're joined. So I had to notice everyone in order to make sure it was on the record that I don't consent to your little mandates, that this is an open courtroom, that I have religious grounds for refusing the mask policy. And there's nothing you can do about it, basically. There's nothing you can do about my religious beliefs that prevent me from putting on a mask to get into this open courtroom. So I noticed the crap out of them with that. And then, so the court clerk really didn't like me. Big surprise. So she sits next to the judge the whole time. So, they're buddies and whatnot. And so I would go to her, not on my court date, but just to file documents,
Yeah.
So when I went, so you can file them through the mail as well, but I decided to go in person to push myself into another uncomfortable situation, because they're a little more lax on non-court days, going in there. They don't have the sign up for the masks and whatnot. So I was able to go in, and I tell the front desk lady, I'm here to see the court clerk to have some documents filed into my case.
Hold on, you just went muffled again.
Dang it.
I don't know if it's
maybe it's Wi-Fi.
Maybe.
I didn't even have my Wi-Fi on. Maybe that'll help.
Oh, Wi-Fi is doing the opposite of helping. Engage for hand typewriter, hilarious. To the sheriff's. Perfect. There you go.
Good to go?
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay, perfect. All right. Gosh, where was I? The court clerk. Yeah. So I go to file my documents and I go inside the building, and the lady's like, okay, I'll go get the court clerk for you. The court clerk comes out, sees that it's me, and immediately says, I'm not talking to you, and proceeds to run away and slam her door. Just at the sight of me, she really didn't like me. So I was videotaping, because I had learned that that's a good thing to do, to record these things. These people who are supposed to work for you, who actually work against you if you don't hold them accountable. So I was videotaping I got that on video of her running away from me and refusing to file my documents. So then I tell the front desk lady, I was like, you're being recorded. This lady has just committed a crime. What's it called? Evidence tampering? Yeah, she just committed the crime of evidence tampering.
Yeah.
And that she needed to go get one of her supervisors. And she was like stiff as a board as soon as I said that. So she did that, and then the lady comes out. She's like, "Oh, I'm sure the court clerk didn't mean it. Like, she'll talk to you. She'll file your documents."
Oh, right, of course.
Yeah. So she goes and gets the court clerk, talks to her for a minute, and then she comes out. I mean, did a complete 180. She's just like, "Can I get you anything else?" Like, I was like, okay, that's really weird behavior. But she did. She filed my documents. I was like, you gotta stamp every page. Because they don't do that. Normally they'll just stamp the front page. I was like, stamp every single one, because these were the affidavits that I was filing. So I had sent the affidavit to the arresting officer and to the court. So that was a funny encounter with the court clerk. And then came time for my actual hearing. So my appointment time was 9 a.m. And I get there. I tried to get into court. Again, they block me. You're going to put on a mask. I'm like, no, I'm not going to put on a mask. I sent you guys this notice. I'm going to show it to you right now. I noticed you guys ahead of time. I don't consent to this. And I have a right to be in this courtroom. And so I did that. And then they're like, okay, you got to wait outside. I was like, okay, fine, whatever. So I had brought 3 people with me, 2 of the same. And then my pastor, the assistant pastor from church, also wanted to come with me because he was, I would say, a little bit intrigued with what I got going on with all that stuff. He definitely doesn't agree, but I would say he was intrigued. So they were there. See
how this one plays out.
Yeah, exactly. So they made me wait outside for 5 hours. Wouldn't speak to me, wouldn't look at me. When they came out to see if there was anyone else there for court, she would be yelling, "Is there anyone else here for court?" I'm like, been here since 9. Right. Nothing from them. They were clearly coached. And when I tried to go in to use the bathroom, because that was one of the things I noticed them about, I said, I don't consent to being refused access to a public restroom. And the marshal personally blocked me from the bathroom. And I am 7 months pregnant at the time. So love you.
Much different situation than when you were first.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Yep, noticeably pregnant. I wasn't like noticeably pregnant at my arraignment because I couldn't have been more than 3 months pregnant at the time. So this was the first time I was noticeably pregnant. So he blocked me, and it's like, I'm 7 months pregnant. Like, you have to pee a lot at that stage. So that was just shameless cruelty, I would say. But my friend, he allowed me. He told me that there was another public restroom, like down the street. I had to drive there to get there, that I could go use the restroom. I was like, are you sure you're not going to call my name while I'm gone?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
He was like, no, we won't call your name while you're gone. So I took his word for that one, and he didn't. They were nice. So yeah, I got to go use the restroom. The quarantine restroom, I guess. Whatever. Did that. And came back, had to wait several more hours. Didn't have any food. I was not prepared for waiting all day long when my appointment was supposed to be at 9 o'clock. Like, they could have told me. They could have said, we're going to make you the last person of the day so that you don't endanger anyone. They didn't say anything. They clearly just wanted to mess with me.
Meanwhile, withholding nutrition from your unborn child. With no guilt.
Yep. Yeah, wasn't prepared for it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, but it was an interesting day watching everyone shuffle in and out, all the different kinds of people there, and I kind of learned what probation is for. Probation is for getting you booked again, basically. If anything happens to you on probation, if you miss a phone call, you got to go back in to see the judge, and you're back in trouble. So that's pretty much what probation is, to create second offenders, which is so just a rough system for people to get out of, I would say.
Certainly.
Yeah, but did finally get into the court. Got lectured by the judge again. And what he asked me was, why do you think everyone else in here is wearing a mask? They're doing their part. Like, why do you think that you don't have to do this? And I just straight up told him, you've given me a choice between obeying you or obeying God. And I made my choice. And I just left that one there for him. And he said, are you saying that God told you not to wear a mask? I said, yep.
Right here.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And he's like, okay, we're going to move forward in this unusual circumstance. We're just going to move forward, basically. So that was my win. I would say categorize it as a win. What I had to notice them with beforehand was if they tried to arrest me with failure to appear, if they tried to arrest me for contempt of court, if they did anything like that, I was going to charge them with this long list of things. Like here in Georgia, if you assault a pregnant woman, that's 10 years in prison. 10 years. So I made sure that they knew, like I combed the statutes to make sure that I had every little piece of things that I could charge them with. So I noticed the sheriff's department and local police department and the judge, like no funny business, basically.
Yeah, you and that lieutenant would have been switching seats real fast.
Yeah. So, that was good preparation. That really did get them to back down because they kept all the way like up to the week before my court date. They were sending me they made new rules of court just for my appearance. They changed the definition of courtroom. They changed, the suggestion of the mask. They made it mandatory. All this stuff, hoping to intimidate me and make me think that, no, I don't have the right to not wear a mask. Which, it didn't work. Because, honestly, if you go into something already knowing that there's nothing they can do to convince you of a lie, then, you just trust God with all of that. And I had to do a lot of that because I didn't know, I thought that maybe they would still arrest me, do something dumb and arrest me. Because that's really how they were acting. They were posturing a lot.
They're looking for a reason.
Yeah, so I had to prepare. My husband was still gone. He was in Virginia on assignment with the military, doing some special schooling. So I had to protect my kids, like in the event that I got arrested again. I had to have them with a trusted friend. I had them several hours away because I didn't want them coming to get my kids, if I was arrested. I didn't want them doing anything like that, so I'm having to trust God. I don't leave my kids. Like it was a very hard situation for me to leave my children, not with strangers, definitely not, long time trusted friends who lived a couple hours away. So I was so thankful that they were nearby because I don't have family anywhere around here. Like my dad, he couldn't make it for the court date. He really wanted to because my dad has legal experience. He got an associate's in law and he used to work for a law firm. He didn't really like it that much, but it was good experience for him. And also he's, had his run-ins with the IRS. They haven't bagged him yet, so.
Nice.
Yeah, so he really wanted to be there to help me out because he's been in court and he's been, up against crooked judges before. So he had that experience. And But he's a Sigma, so he lets people figure things out on their own. He'll, like, if somebody asks him for advice, he'll give it, but he's never like pushy, like, this is what you should do, even if
he's not going to inject himself into a situation.
Yeah, like, he really wanted me to get a lawyer, but he knew that I wasn't going to, because I wasn't trying to get out of anything. I wasn't trying to that's what lawyers are for.
Well, you had nothing to cover up, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I wasn't hiding anything. I wasn't, there was no reason in my mind to get a lawyer, because that would give me no experience whatsoever. In my opinion, I would not get experience. I would sure get the feel of like sitting in a courtroom and doing nothing, which I guess is okay. Like for my friend, she was like, it was really good for me to be in a courtroom in that setting, watching what's going on, so that, you can get a feel for how these things go down. So yeah, definitely good. But I wanted to do it on my own, just on principle. And I'm kind of stubborn. It happens. But I'm glad, like, even though I was charged with criminal trespassing and with obstruction of a police officer. I was charged with those two things, and it was like there were certain things that threw me off guard. The police officers in the municipal cases are the ones who act as the lawyers. Whoever they arrested, they are the ones defending their case for arresting you, instead of having a district attorney or something.
Right.
So I was surprised. I'm like, oh, I thought these were going to be witnesses against me, and that was not the case. It was I was talking to the judge. I'm like, so in what capacity are these police officers acting? And, they're the prosecuting attorney, basically. So that was interesting, because a lot of what I was prepared for is the prosecuting attorney is someone who normally doesn't have firsthand experience of the situation. So you can kind of like strike down a lot of what they say based on, you don't have any firsthand experience in this.
Right.
Yeah. So that threw me off. And, I won't make any excuses. I was mostly focused on getting into the courtroom. Most of my preparation, I would say, is not getting arrested and getting into the courtroom. And that was a big victory, because I knew myself, I knew my limits. I knew that I was not going to be, I was going to accept the consequences of not wearing a mask, no matter what. I was going to accept it. So that I ended up getting a victory there. But when it came to the actual court case, didn't have a stenographer, and the judge knew. He knew ahead of time that I was not going to be able to hold him accountable, because nothing of what I said was going to be on the record.
Right.
So he was very smug about that. And I should have caught on to that. But I thought it was just his general smugness. But afterward, when I got the video footage, I was like, oh, you can't hear a word I'm saying.
Yeah, well, they're never going to disclose that information to you.
Yeah,
it's one of those things you kind of got to go through to know how it works.
Yeah, definitely. So good learning experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went through all my affidavit, I read through the whole thing, had every point that I needed to remove the reasonable doubt that I had committed a crime. I had everything in there that I needed. And honestly, all the officers had to do was say, we think she was trespassing, they hardly said a word. They played the body cam footage, which another mistake that I made was I didn't play the body cam footage all the way to the end. I was okay with them playing body cam footage, because there's no footage of the manager telling me to leave, which is required in the criminal trespassing.
Right.
But also, if I had told them to play it all the way to the end, there would have been the clip in there with the female officer at the end, while I'm in the car and she's at the back of the car writing up my tickets, saying that she didn't know why she arrested me. She had no idea. You can't arrest somebody and not know what you're going to book them with. That's just not how it works.
Right. It should be quite the opposite. You're pretty damn sure of what's happening.
So if I had played it all the way to the end, there would have been reasonable doubt on the court record, because the audio from the video was there. So another mistake that I made, But I went in actually knowing ahead of time that I was guilty to the judge because I had challenged his authority on the mask issue. So I kind of knew that it actually didn't really matter what I did, that I was going to be charged. Because that's just how it was going to go. But it was still very disappointing to get this. I would say purposefully humiliating on his part. But he made sure to rub it in. You get to all the end of it, and then he starts trying to get me to admit, after he's already sentenced me, guilty as a criminal trespasser, all this stuff. He starts trying to get me to admit that I was guilty, that I was a criminal trespasser, even though, like, I know that I'm not, even though the judge says so. I knew that I wasn't, and he was seriously trying to get me to state it for the record, just to gloat. And yeah, I didn't give that to him, that's for sure. Yeah, and then he just started asking me for like reasons why he shouldn't sentence me to prison. He's like, do you have anything to add, that might be on your side, so that I can give you a lighter sentence?
I was shopping for my kids, and I had money to pay for what I wanted.
Yeah, and he was like,
what else do you need?
I could have sentenced you to prison for a year. That's what he told me.
Bullshit.
Like, okay, well, we both know you weren't going to do that to a pregnant lady. You're just puffing yourself up in front of your posse, because there were a lot of police officers.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, they were all in there, and they were cheering when I got convicted. All of them cheering, like, yes, we did it.
Well, because you embarrassed the hell out of all of them, right? They were determined to take you down.
Yeah, it was obviously had to be a lot of talk amongst them, because I noticed their departments, and there was a noticeable change once they got those notices, in the posturing. So yeah, it was a big deal. So yeah, I got probation for 2 years, which was like, but if you're really good, you can get that knocked down to just 1 year. So I'm just doing their little probation program, which I had to call every week for 6 months, which I thought I was going to have to do it for a year, but the probation officer who was there, who witnessed my case go down, you could tell that she knew that this was not a good deal that had been had, and that the judge pretty much just did whatever he wanted. So she felt bad for me, which I wasn't trying to get anyone's pity. It's not like I got pregnant so that I could go get arrested and, go through all of this for pity. But she basically worked with me, and she's like, if you do the phone call, I'll get you down to a year, like, really quickly, and then, monthly calls for the last 6 months. So she did that for me. Really nice lady. Grateful to have her. So I've got like 3 more months. So that's just 3 more calls, and then I'm home free. I can go get into these situations with the cops again
and not be under probation at the time.
Yeah. So that's the hard part right now, is you really have to watch yourself while you're on probation, because they'll try to get you as a second offender. So I haven't had any like squirrely activity from them so far. So that's really good.
You're sitting there itching for it, though. You're ready for that 3rd month to be done, so you can just jump out there and go out, I'm like, push the envelope.
So I've run into these officers, like going out to lunch after church, or, on Saturday or something, with my whole family, baby and all, and my husband. I've run into these officers, and the dude who was egging this female officer on, he just likes to whisper, like, and I just give him this nice smile, because it's like I'm not mad at them. Clearly they reacted in what should have been to me a predictable way, and I just didn't know how to handle the situation at the time. So, I just smile, like I don't bear any ill will toward them. I'm very grateful that I got to learn all of this through the situation, because it's a big deal. getting into those situations, which, it seems like it's more and more, not that inevitable. I don't want to say inevitable at all, but this seems more and more common, just because, things like going to the store, you could get people call the cops on you.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, and if your kids have been with you, I mean, how would that have, changed
I
the
would have
dynamic of the situation?
Yeah, I would have left. I wouldn't have, I would have spoken to this manager and just said, I would have said the same thing to her, but once she said, I'm going to call the cops, I would have just
all right,
departed
guys,
from this.
let's get out of here, yeah.
Yeah, there's no reason to stay. But, it was a perfect storm that day, I guess. Like, I'm out by myself, which is not normal. And then, I don't know. I just guess I needed it. I needed the test.
Yeah. Well, and you got it, and it kind of full circle back to where we started. Is you didn't lose. Like you learned from each of those experiences, and then you ended up winning.
Yeah. Yep. And it was, mostly an expected outcome with being sentenced in the first place. That was an expected outcome. I mean, I have no legal experience other than that, after the fact. I have a lot of hindsight on everything that went down in that court case, tons of hindsight. And, after that, because I kept getting into issues with my midwives, I bought the course Jurisdictionary. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that. Probably a few people in the bear community have heard of Jurisdictionary. But that's just like a legal course where you just learn what a lawyer knows, but in a very condensed sort of way, where it's self-learning, self-taught. And that was so helpful to give me hindsight on how all the pieces were fitting together and what I could have done better. So that's where I learned, like, yeah, you definitely need to get a stenographer anytime, like, even if it's not a criminal case, get a stenographer. Like, you have to have things on the record. The record is the most important thing. So big lesson learned. But yeah, with my midwives, like, that got ridiculous. But I was happy that I was able to defend myself much more proficiently, I guess. Calling the cops myself several times on these midwives, trying to resolve the issue calmly, without trespassing, all that stuff. But yeah, eventually I had to get rid of them because they just downright refused to deliver my baby, even though they couldn't come up with any medical reason for me to not be under their care. They were like, none of us are going to deliver your baby. So.
Well, then you should resign from this field, because that's kind of like what you're in it to do, right?
Oh, but the virtue signaling was just hardcore. Like, I mean, this lady would just cry. She would just cry, like, I can't believe you're doing this to me, and I helped so many women. Like, it was just blah.
Unbelievable.
Yes, it was terrible. But yeah, it was third trimester where I ended up having to leave and just, like, leap of faith, God, do you have another midwife for me? And there was a great midwife, and she took me on, no questions, was like, nope, you don't have to wear a mask, you don't have to do anything silly. Your care is totally up to you. So it was exactly what I needed.
Amazing, yeah.
Right
at the perfect time, exactly.
Yep. Yep. So I'm glad I wasn't able to stay with the other midwives, because it probably would have been a bad outcome, I would say, just because of the tension. Like, there was
it would have been stressful at the very least.
Yeah, there was no good relationship there. They had already decided that I was the bad guy again. So even if they had delivered my baby, it wouldn't have been a good experience. So thankful again to have moved on.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, what time is it? Oh, I talked for a long time.
Not sure. Where are we at? 2 hour mark? No, that was an incredible story. A lot of solid points that I think could help a lot of people out. Luckily, we're not facing as much of the mask nonsense as we were, but It's not to say that they can't turn it back on at any time.
Yeah, and
No,
it
obviously
doesn't
the
just,
Bears will still hold their ground, but that
yeah.
doesn't mean the people we run into out in society are gonna act any
Yeah,
differently. You
and
know.
I would say it doesn't just apply to the mask. Like the mask was like the first
Oh, it's
part. So
anything. It's a very small example of a bigger scale
yeah,
problem that we
yeah.
kind of face
Because I mean,
as
with my husband being in the military and having to push back against their stupid shenanigans right now, just like you got to take this shot. And it's like, no, I don't.
right.
And learning how to push back against that, but also like we're just because we have no debt. We have a lot of savings, totally prepared for this kind of scenario. It's a lot easier to fight people. I won't say fight. I just mean like to hold your ground because
Just
they
stand
can't
your ground,
threaten you with it.
exactly.
There's nothing to threaten you with, essentially. It's
Right.
a huge part, huge jump in life to not have that financial threat just looming over you, and like even just a mortgage or anything like that. It's a big
Yeah.
step.
Well, and when you're staying in honor, you don't feel any conviction about holding that line
Yeah,
because ultimately you are doing the right thing, and if they're pushing against you, then that's the enemy trying to get you to crack, get you to break under that pressure, and I think that's when we're really tested the most is under that pressure, and if you can
yeah,
stand your ground like you did, then it works out in time. It might not always be right away. I mean, you had to do probation, but that time's flown by, and like you said, in
yeah.
3 months
It's
it'll be
honestly
over.
it's okay. It's okay with me. I all of it a learning experience and a good experience. A learning experience is a good experience, even though like through a lot of it, it was really hard. Like I remember when Owen was going through the legal battle over Patreon and everything, and I understand now how stressful that must have been. Just having other people that rely on you to go into it, do a good job, and be competent. So
Yeah,
yeah, I understand now how stressful that can be. I don't want to like rush headlong into anything like this again, unless like I'm called to take up the torch again.
yeah. I was just gonna say, do you have any plans for hell raising once you're off probation? What's gonna be the next move?
It depends. I was going to file a lawsuit against those midwives because, as I was going through the struggle with my midwives, I was going through the other court case. So they're both about masks, so a lot of the information is intersecting, and I learned how to record things. I learned how to get body cam footage really quickly. I just learned all these things, like, because if it's not part of a criminal case, you can get the body cam footage like right away. So I learned that, if I call the police, then I've got this footage in the situation. So I was able to get body cam footage from that. I was able to record calls. I was able to notice them. Just have all these confrontations that taught me things. So I was preparing to file a case, basically. A breach of contract was the basic case that I was going to file. And so it just so happened that there was a lawyer in the county in Florida where this midwife was and all the interactions happened. He got the courts to create an injunction against the mask mandates at the courts and everything. Just basically, there's a presumption that mask mandates are unconstitutional unless you can prove them otherwise. So got the presumption in the favor of, the mask deniers, I guess. So that was in the district that I was going to file the case. I was like, oh, this is great. I won't have to fight them to get into court
Right.
to file this case. And so it was about masks. The whole breach of contract thing. They had originally agreed to take me without masks and then took it back. So they had breached the contract. So I don't know. The presumption was going to make it easier for me. And then my husband came back. He came back in my third trimester. He was back for good, done with his schooling, and we had this freak lightning storm the night that he came back, like within a couple hours. Crazy lightning storm. And we had this ant problem. Sorry, this was in July. So the ants on the counter, in the summertime, they're always getting stuff.
Naturally.
This is Florida, close to Florida. So really bad, little teeny tiny sugar ant problem. We had this lightning storm. So all through this stuff with my midwives and with the judge and everything, I am thinking of myself as this army of ants, going up against just like really irritating these people, and I kind of like had this analogy in my head that I was like this army of ants to the judge, to the midwives. And so I had this analogy in my head, and then we had this lightning storm the night that my husband got home, and the ants were gone. I know this sounds so weird, but I took it as a sign from God that it was time to chill. The time to chill had come, and I was so thankful, like that I didn't have to be in that fight mode anymore. My husband was back. I was done with that case. I had found a new midwife, but I was still doing my due diligence with like collecting what I needed in order to file a case if, God ever gave me the sign that I should. But I took the ants gone as a sign. They're still not here. Like I could not get rid of them. I tried so many things, couldn't get rid of them. And I haven't seen one single ant since that storm.
Wow.
And I know that's so weird, but I had just had to take it as a sign because there were two things at once. The arrival of my husband, and the ants leaving. So weird, but true.
Talk about a weight being lifted.
Yeah, it was a huge weight gone. And I'm totally willing to file a case against her, but I also am not a malicious person. Like, I don't want to torture this woman.
Right.
And so if it's torture to her, like I feel like God would let me know that, that's not the role that I need to be stepping into. So probably won't do anything, because right now we're probably going to get kicked out of the military and have to move back home to Oklahoma anyway. So we're like actively looking for land to start a homestead, which I'm happy. Like we're stalling the getting kicked out just a little bit, but not capitulating, and but also not fighting for our chains, like, I really want to stay in the military. No, I don't. We don't. We're pretty fed up with it. And like even if they give up their whole shot mandate, they're going to come with something else. They're going to come at you with something else. And it's like, why would I fight for this life? Like we're going to delay the being kicked out so that we can, just buy some land and have a place to go. But other than that, like we're pretty excited to just be done with it.
I think they're going to turn the military into like the Dothraki, where they just, or not the Dothraki, but the eunuch army, where everyone has to be trans. And so if you want to stay in, then you get chopped or you're out.
Yeah, that's definitely not going to work.
I'm out of here. I'm gladly out.
Yep. You don't even want to work in that environment. Like even if you don't have to be trans, if everyone around you is trans, like you're just like, ugh. Like my husband.
There's just a suicide every 30 minutes.
Yeah, and even just working with women is really hard in the military. Like you have to be in really close quarters. Like when you're on deployment or working on a submarine, like it's intense, the close quarters that you have to be in. And then you add women into that, and it's just wrong. It's wrong. It messes up everyone's flow. Like men should be able to work together, uninterrupted by the female, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's how it always used to be. And it's like over generations, we've seen it kind of slowly taking this turn to what we're seeing now. And
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would vote to say that we're the strongest we've ever been.
Yeah, no, not when you're adding women who would be the weak links
How
into
dare
the
you?
male chain, Yeah, and also they can't be part of the hierarchy, so it's like, what are you supposed to do with that?
Right.
Yeah.
No tits on ships. Hilarious. A suicide and a rape every 30 minutes. Ugh.
Oh.
These ladies are getting it. So if you guys get out, or when you get out, I should say, your goal is to go back to Oklahoma, you said?
Yeah, or a surrounding state. Like we're looking in Arkansas and Missouri and Oklahoma.
Cool.
So we're trying to get our family on board, at least like for future. We're trying to get enough land to where they could also build a home.
Multi-generational homestead is the move.
Yeah, so we're trying, and they're like, my sister Spring and my dad, they're really interested, but they have trouble jumping in because they just have like their own thing going on. Like my dad's a Sigma, so he's kind of a wild card. It's just like that was my whole life, was kind of a wild card with my dad, which is fun, really fun. Love my dad.
Keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, exactly. You're always on your toes.
Which I think benefited you in this whole situation.
Yeah, it definitely did. And, obviously it has a big part to do with my personality.
I think we just triggered paraplegic again with on your toes. He got really upset about standing your ground a little bit ago.
Nice.
It's just, it doesn't sound right when you sit your ground. But,
You're going to take a firm sit.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was I saying? Yeah. So my dad, he wants to, and he's willing to financially contribute to it in the present while he's not there. So he absolutely does want to, but and he has he's got a huge client base and just responsibilities that he wants to take care of. He's only, how old is he? He's like 51 or 52. So we come from a family where like everyone got married really young, had kids really young, just on down the line. So, so my dad, he's a grandfather of 11 kids at 52.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is.
That's
crazy.
exactly what you want.
Yep.
You can still put him out in the field and have him working for another good 15 years.
Exactly. That's what he needs. He needs time away from the stress of his job. He needs to just totally stop it completely. That's what he needs to do, and he knows it. He's known it for years, but he has trouble because it's just what he's always done, and he's an entrepreneur. So it's just hard for him to just chill out and do something.
Get him blueprints for a greenhouse, and he'll be busy for like 6 months.
But he's also not a handyman, like no handy skills whatsoever. So he has the stupidest stories. Like one time he thought it was a really good idea in the ice to try to get the ice off the roof. Oh, I know how I'll do it. I'll screw screws into my shoes, hoping that they'll give me traction on the ice. And he fell off of the roof and gave himself a concussion.
Oh my God.
No handy skills whatsoever. Has really bad ideas when it comes to handymanning.
So there's room for improvement, but there's nothing but time.
Yeah, he needs some work. He can mow a lawn, I would say. Basic things like that. He can operate
pulling weeds.
Yeah, pulling weeds.
Picking the veggies.
He can grow tomatoes. He really loves his tomatoes.
Clean out the chicken coop. There's always stuff to be done.
Yeah, he can kill snakes. Basic man stuff.
I mean, if paraplegic can roast coffee, then I'm sure your old man can do just about anything.
Nice.
Awesome. Do you have anything on your mind that you want to share? I know. We can hang out as long as you want to. I don't know what kind of time schedule you guys are on, but anything that was on your mind that you want to definitely share tonight?
I mean, I really wanted to get the story out in the open because sometimes it's hard for me to share because I don't operate on the assumption that my experience and my opinion on things is like really important to other people. But I did come to the conclusion that it's important that people know, and that I share, that it's possible to hold your ground, especially when you're trusting God. I really, really had to trust him with this outcome. And there's one thing that my dad would always tell me as a kid, is that you trust God, and the consequences, you do what's right, and then the consequences belong to God, essentially.
Certainly.
So there should be no barrier between you and doing what's right. There shouldn't be, like, when you think about the life of Jesus, there was no social barrier. Like, that's a huge thing, a huge hurdle for people, I think, in this time, is that there's a social barrier to doing what's right. Because there's social pressure about something, it automatically gives you something to consider. And it's like, why are we considering anything at all? We should just be doing what's right, regardless of the consequences, because if you're doing what God wants you to do, then what you have.
Yeah, well, when you're wearing that armor of God, I mean, it's like the consequences don't frighten you. And if anything, you may not even start to notice consequences in the way that you feared you might.
Yeah, because you can literally have the mindset that these consequences are a part of my experience that God wants me to have. And I knew all through my journey with law enforcement and the judge and everything, I knew that God had me going through it for a reason, even though, certain parts of it were really hard, especially leaving my children. I can't even stress that enough. That was the hardest part. That was probably the only time I cried in the whole experience, being.
I don't believe you even cried then.
I did. I sat, so I put them to bed the night before my court case. I put them to bed myself. I didn't want anyone else to do it. And I sat outside their bedroom at my friend's house, just listening to their bedtime chatter, as kids do.
Oh, yeah.
Listening to their bedtime chatter and just crying, because it was a big deal, because I don't leave them, and B, I was taking on a task that seemed, I was definitely the underdog in the situation. So I knew it. I knew I was the underdog.
Those are God's favorite fights, though.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a good fight, definitely a good story. And in the moment, still really hard. But I did it. I don't know how. Well, I do. I know that God was with me through all that. And my kids were taken care of. I did not have to go to jail again, even though he really wanted me in jail again. And there were just several layers of protection that God gave me, ways that he helped me to see that, how I could protect myself and my kids. So really just put a lot of good information in my path to help me through the situation. And definitely I can't stress enough how good this friend was. I only knew her for 2 months before I asked her, will you put yourself in harm's way and come film these situations at the courthouse? That was a huge deal. And I ended up, after all was said and done, on the anniversary of my arrest, I gave her an original art piece in her honor. Just trying to express to her in some way that I was very grateful that she was by my side, even though she didn't know me that well. I mean, she knows me well now, but she didn't.
Yeah, well, it's amazing who God will put in your life at the perfect moments that you need them.
Yeah, definitely.
Very, very cool.
Yep. I don't think I really have too much else. I try not to be long-winded, but I did want to get that story out.
Yeah, no, I totally wanted you to just kind of take it and run with it. So I appreciate you sharing that with everybody. I know that the chat was definitely loving every bit of that story, and I think taking a lot of
I can't
good
keep up with
info
the
away.
chat.
Yeah, it's I was kind of trying and also making sure I was listening to everything you were saying, and I missed a lot of the comments, but they were also talking amongst themselves, so that's all good as well.
Yeah.
But I think everybody's carrying something good away from this chat tonight, and stuff that it might, like you said, it might not be a mass situation, but just any situation where we're up against the enemy in any sense, and just remembering that when you have God with you, that I mean, relying on Him and staying close to Him will get you through any kind of battle. And you may not always feel like you're winning right away, but in the long run, you definitely will, and you'll get that learning experience
it
as
didn't
well.
feel like a win. Just getting on probation, that didn't feel like a win, and having the judge, try to humiliate me and all that, that didn't feel like a win, but now I know,
It'll feel a lot more like a win in 4 months when you're back on the street with your do-rag and you're kicking the rocks again.
Yeah, definitely. I'll go get my cornrows and my tattoo. Don't forget, I gotta get the tattoo.
Yeah. just make sure it's either on your throat or above your eyebrow.
How about a teardrop right here?
Right, exactly. Hilarious. Say, Pony, I appreciate you coming on tonight. God bless you and your family. Tell your husband happy birthday again, and thank you for sharing you with us on his birthday. Maybe we gave him a little bit of time on his birthday, and maybe it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on.
Of course, and you're welcome back anytime. If you'd like to come back on, if you have another story or anything you'd like to share, or just want to come hang out, reach out to myself or any of the hosts. We'd be happy to have you back.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Appreciate everybody who's in the chat as well. Have a great rest of your evening, and we will see you guys tomorrow.
All right. Bye, everyone.
All right, y'all. Much love.